Yeah, I think it's a bargaining chip because Trump, Musk, everyone knows there's only one game in town. It's Nvidia, right? It's Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia, and this is going to give them more negotiating power in terms of chips into China. And it's something that's going to ultimately play out. You saw the tariffs. I think it's had a contained impact on Nvidia, but it continues to be our belief. This is all setting up for a golden age of AI, not just for Nvidia, but for broader tech. But it's a bargaining chip as they negotiate with Beijing.
What about, speaking of negotiations with Beijing, what about for a company like Apple, which is trying to embed, all this new technology around AI, and it wants to sell a lot of these phones within China? Yeah. They're obviously not expected to be that open to just allowing anything to be sold in their country. What kind of risk is there around that if there is some escalation between the two countries?
And I think no one understands that better than Cook in terms of the China sort of dynamics. I continue to believe they get a strategic partner in China, whether it's Baidu, whether it's Baba, that's going to be, we'll call it the AI partner for Apple when it comes to iPhone 16, eventually iPhone 17. And I think that's why China is going to be a strength for Apple, not a headwind.
Because you can't have a carve-out for everything, right? Not every single company is going to have its little carve-out, which enables what is an acrimonious relationship between China and the U.S. to just benefit X, Y, Z company and this company here. At some point, broader policies in this country are going to impact big businesses.
No doubt. But I think Musk being involved changes the whole landscape. And I think that's something where in tech, the reason you haven't seen tech sell off in terms of worries about tariffs, there's a view Musk understands in terms of there will be poker moves played, but no poker move was better than ultimately him betting on Trump, because now we're talking about something that's going to be, I think, trillions.
No, that sure looks like a royal flush that he had in his hand. Lastly, and then I got to go. Nvidia, what is next week? The earnings, right? What do we think about this heading in?
Get the popcorn, get the watch parties ready. I mean, this is going to be a jaw dropper. I think Street's still underestimating in terms of where numbers go over the next 1-2 years. I think this is one. They will battle, but ultimately $4 trillion market cap is on the horizon.
We'll leave it there. Dan Ives, new title and all, comes to Post 9 and shares his views. We appreciate it as always. Thank you.
The stock market buzzes with anticipation as Nvidia, the world's largest market cap powerhouse, prepares to unveil its third-quarter earnings. Investors everywhere are on edge, eagerly waiting to see if this tech giant can continue its meteoric rise. Nvidia has already validated a remarkable year-to-date growth of 191%. Now, the focus shifts to whether the company can maintain this momentum and exceed Wall Street's expectations. Whispers of high demand for their groundbreaking AI chips, Hopper and Blackwell, have only heightened the stakes. Nvidia's earnings will be critical not just for the company, but for the broader tech market as well. CEO Jensen Huang is determined to surpass analysts' forecasts. But will booming reports be enough to push Nvidia shares over the predicted $140 mark? A major twist in this stock market saga is about to unfold, promising both opportunities and challenges ahead for investors. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Investocracy.
Obviously, it's the event of the week, Nvidia numbers. Stock is like backing off just a little bit here. A lot of noise around, the pacing of Blackwell and all the rest of it. What's your read on what embedded expectations are for Nvidia and how it's prepared to trade?
Yeah, certainly expectations are for a beat for Nvidia. And I think in some ways, the reason why expectations are so high is because the cloud companies have actually given us Nvidia's earnings already, right? It's like 50% of every dollar of CapEx is being spent on an Nvidia GPU. Cloud CapEx went up by 9% this quarter in aggregate. So we expect fairly high bar for them beating, because that's that's what they sell, right? And so the key to watch is going to be around Blackwell, right? Blackwell is the next generation platform, and some early indicators around that are very, very positive, and we're going to continue to watch that.
So you have this report this morning or overnight about how maybe there's a little bit of a log jam in installations of Blackwell because of overheating issues. We've known this was something that was, something had to be figured out.
Yeah.
At the same time, a bigger picture debate seems to me over the last several weeks happening about whether the pacing of improvement in the AI models is sufficient at this point to justify that much more, let's say 2026 levels of further investment. How does that?
So let me hit on both of them. So like Blackwell, this is their first foray into doing something beyond just semiconductors, right? And so it's not just semiconductors that they're selling, but they're selling an entire system solution. So obviously there's going to be ups and downs because this is a relatively new foray for them, but this is one of the best executing companies out there, and we have no doubt they're going to be able to solve the heat dissipation issues over time. And your second question?
Well, about the large language models, how the next generation is really not showing the same pace of improvement.
Right, so that's the report that we saw in OpenAI and some of the, exactly. So in some ways you could spin that as a positive, right? Because these guys are not going to stop trying to improve their models.
So in other words, the sunk cost fallacy says, we've invested this much, even if it's slowing down, we have to invest that
so
much more.
I think that's a great big debate in the market right now, right? It's like everybody's looking around. We've spent $500 billion on AI infrastructure, and everybody's looking around and saying, where are all the applications?
Right.
What are the use cases for this thing? And where is the ROI? And the natural conclusion is that, look, there must be some kind of like slowdown coming. But I think what people are missing is that these cloud companies are investing for their existential relevance over the next 20 years. Do you think Google or Amazon want to be your second or third best large language model out there?
Yeah.
So they're pressing ahead, and I think this question about ROI is a good one, but I think there are other factors at play right now.
In the ever-evolving world of the stock market, NVIDIA stands as a beacon of technological prowess and investor intrigue. The narrative of NVIDIA's upcoming earnings release is akin to a suspenseful market blockbuster, with each analyst providing their own twist to the tale. Dr. C.K. Narayan of NeoTrader sets the stage by predicting that, should NVIDIA beat street expectations, the stock is poised to ascend beyond the $140 per share threshold. His tweet was a cocktail of conviction and caution, hinting that only sensational numbers would sustain its current trend. Trading fans might chuckle at the thought of NVIDIA attempting to overtake the S&P 500. It's like putting a fast car against a high-speed train in a race. But it's no joke that NVIDIA has indeed surpassed Apple in market capitalization multiple times since June, becoming a leviathan in the financial seas. With earnings per share exceeding forecasts 10 out of the last 12 quarters, the chipmaker's ability to surprise and delight is spot on, showing average post-earnings movements of 5.3%. Jensen Huang's forecast, $32.5 billion in revenue driven by GPUs like Blackwell, cements NVIDIA's place at the forefront of the AI infrastructure revolution. Market analysts like Joseph Moore from Morgan Stanley still have an overweight rating, nudging the price target from $150 to $160. With their revolutionary Blackwell chips priced at a staggering $30,000 to $40,000, a demand frenzy is inevitable. At the same time, scorching reports of overheating issues with these processors remind us that every tech marvel comes with its share of drama. But before we go any further, if you want to keep up with NVIDIA's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates. Now, back to the video.
Shares of Nvidia sitting out the tech rally today. You can see they were down about 1 1/3%, but they closed well off the lows. That's after a report by The Information said the company's upcoming Blackwell chips are having issues with overheating. Nvidia reports third quarter earnings after the bell Wednesday. We'll break down the results here on Overtime as soon as they're out. Well, joining us now is Melius Research Head of Technology Research, Ben Reitzes. His firm has a buy rating on NVIDIA, $185 price target. Great to have you back, Ben. So I actually want to start with large language models. A lot of talk out there about the idea that LLMs might not have the gas for the long drive to make good on these valuations. Do you think that's true? And if it is true, how much of a threat is that to NVIDIA's price and valuation here?
I don't think it's true, John, and great to be with you. We put out a piece today quoting quite a few folks that don't think it's true as well. Most prominently, Sam Altman, who basically, after that article came out, said there is no wall. But really, what I thought was interesting is Dario Amodei of Anthropic talked about how companies are working on ways to create more data, synthetic data, as well as data from scratch in these AI models that'll help train them further and scale them further. Not so coincidentally, Jensen put out a release on Thursday night talking about how Blackwell was ideal for for scaling large language models from here. So in short, John, I think that the industry is going to figure this out, and we're still off to the races, especially with Blackwell.
Okay, now closer to home timing-wise about this possible overheating issue. When NVIDIA is out ahead as far as it is performance-wise, and arguably they don't have a one-for-one competitor, if there are some issues with some number of these chips, how much does it matter?
Doesn't matter at all, John. If it's not this quarter, it's the next or the next. It's a lot like, you know, when Apple used to have an issue with the iPod. This dates me, I know. But going way back, they were the only game in town. There was always a production problem with the new iPod, but it always shipped eventually, and they crushed it. They had no competitor in music, if you remember. Even in iPhone, they had actually a little bit of a competitor there in Samsung. It still didn't matter. Their loyal customers came back. This is the enterprise or AI version of that. There's a line from 59th Street all the way up into Westchester County for this Blackwell. Think about that. And if they don't get it this quarter, they'll get it next or the next. And I think that we're going to be fine here. The cooling issue, I think that probably some customers are having that issue. It's such a complex chip. It takes so much engineering in your own architecture as well as with NVIDIA. Somebody's bound to have problems that the information spoke with, but there's a line out the door. Keep your eye on the prize.
The expected unveiling on November 20th is akin to the unveiling of an economic crystal ball that holds significant sway over the S&P 500's direction. With Nvidia contributing to around 25% of predicted Q3 profit growth, its results could shake the indices like an epic tremor. Options traders have already started hedging bets, embracing a surge of past volatility as an indication of possible headline-making events. Investors are keeping a keen eye on Nvidia's data center segment, which has been driving substantial growth owing to an AI spending frenzy, courtesy of tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta. This segment's revenue is expected to hit a jaw-dropping $29.53 billion, marking an impressive 200% increase year over year. It seems Nvidia has capitalized on the zeitgeist of AI and is riding the wave with commendable poise and potential. But as Nvidia's gross margins subtly wane from 78.4% to 75.1% due to mounting operating costs, some whisper questions over the sustainability of this skyward momentum. Will growth continue to outpace the rising costs, or will investors see profits slip through their hands? But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
So there's a line out the door, but we also know investors, when it comes to earnings and initial reactions to earnings, tend to be a little bit more short-sighted, shall we say. So what should you be keeping in mind in terms of how all of this could shape the outlook, the uncertainty around it, the valuation near-term versus long-term for NVIDIA, and what that means for the stock?
Yeah, it could create a little volatility. What could happen is that there's not enough production right now of Blackwell to kind of hit whispers and in the next quarter as well. I think investors should look through that. What I think NVIDIA is going to do this time, maybe it's a one-time deal, but because of the product transition, I think they're going to give a little more detail than usual. If the quarter doesn't have as much upside as usual, they'll be a little more prescriptive about how much is pushed into the next and maybe even the next. And we're super optimistic. The street's looking for over 10% sequential growth from this quarter to the next. That could be conservative depending on the production because the buyers are lined up. But some of that probably is pushed into April as well as the quarter after that, July. But we think they'll talk about that sequential growth. Basically, what I think is that NVIDIA is setting it up so over the next 6 quarters or so, they're going to demonstrate $5 plus in earnings power. As long as that's the case, we should be okay.
Do you just focus on NVIDIA exclusively this week, or do you think about some of the Halo stocks? I mean, I'm looking at Dell, right? I mean, they're involved in this build out and shipping of Blackwell infrastructure, specifically on the server side to companies like CoreWeave. Stock finished up 3% today.
Yeah, I think Dell is crushing it. I think that they are winning a lot of the orders from Supermicro. I don't think you're going to see it when Dell reports on November 26th. You have to hear it in pipeline and maybe in outlook, but it should take a few quarters for it to hit for them. But their pipeline and then backlog should really benefit from these super micro issues. And not so coincidentally, Michael Dell, as soon as there was a cooling issue that was talked about in the information, Michael Dell put out that he is ready with his Blackwells, with his cooling solution, and rearing to go along with CoreWeave. And Dell should be a long-term winner here.
As the day of NVIDIA's financial reckoning draws near, investors and enthusiasts alike are perched on a knife's edge. The chatter in trading circles is almost deafening, with the anticipation that NVIDIA's performance could redefine market trends and, perhaps, even redefine investment strategies. With the promise of another record quarter riding on the strength of its AI chips, NVIDIA continues to stand as a titanic force on the stock horizon. While some remain cautious, wary of past overheating issues and looming competition, others see a roaring opportunity, a chance to catch a ride on tech's fastest bullet train. With NVIDIA's stock positioned to impact the S&P 500 in potentially unexpected ways, investors must weigh their bets while embracing the ever-enthralling market ebbs and flows. As you ponder the potential of hitching your financial fortunes to NVIDIA's rising star, what are your thoughts? Is it folly to be swept up in NVIDIA's exuberance, or is there a prudent strategy to be had here? Engage with this unfolding narrative and let's navigate the intriguing and exciting story of NVIDIA together. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like NVIDIA have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.